Hello and welcome to the Driving Maul show here on New Zealand Sports Radio. And I can promise you, we are not a burner account. We are the real deal and we'll be here the whole time. And you can have a chat with me if you want to have a chat with me at DrivingMaul on the old Twitter. Obviously you can get in touch with us via our Facebook page as well, New Zealand Sport Radio. So do that, folks. Don't forget, we're here at 8 p.m. every single Tuesday with the Driving Maul show, or you can catch it as a podcast on your old favourite podcatchers. Just search for New Zealand Sport Radio. And joining me this evening, I've got Stephen Harris. How are you doing, sir?
Yeah, very good. Thank you, Paul. Always a privilege and a pleasure to be on. I'll call it the PDM.
Call it what, sorry?
I'll call it the PDM.
The PDM?
Paul Driving Maul.
Paul's Driving Maul. And if people want to get in touch with you, Stephen, how do they do that?
Oh, they can get a hold of me on my Twitter handle, which is h.Stephen_73.
Something like that. I think it's Stephen H.73 underscore 73. But anyway, whatever.
What?
Somewhere like that. And that's what he does. He does it for all the connections, folks. That's why he does it. He doesn't like me, actually. He does it purely to grow his Twitter profile and his social media presence. That's why Stephen does this.
To me.
Totally. Some of the stuff we'll talk about this evening is Tonga versus the Cook Islands with the Rugby World Cup qualifier. We've got South Africa versus the Lions, and also Razzie's social media videos that he's been putting up. There's been a bit of Farah Palmer Cup. RTS is headed back already, maybe to New Zealand early to be due to the old COVID immigration stuff. We've got some. We'll see if we'll have a chat about some NPC stuff. And as we are talking, the Olympic Sevens quarterfinals are taking place as well. So lots to chat about this evening, Stephen. So, have you been catching much of the Olympic Sevens?
Yeah, a little. Excuse me, Paul. A little bit on and off. I caught up with the highlights of New Zealand's victory over their Trans-Tasman neighbours. Excuse me, earlier today, which has put them, from what I believe, on the right side of the draw. And when I mean the right side of the draw, avoiding both South Africa and Fiji, from what I understand. But I'm saying that. You should not underestimate the teams that are on your side of the draw. But I think New Zealand take on Canada in their quarterfinal game this evening, or in fact, while the show is on, Paul. I'm pretty sure we can get that pull that information off the internet.
Yeah, absolutely. So the All Black Sevens will be taking on Canada at 8:30 p.m. At 9 o'clock. All this is New Zealand time, folks. 9 p.m. Great Britain will be taking on the USA. Followed at 9:30 by South Africa, or the Blitz blocks against Argentina, and then the final quarterfinal is Fiji versus Australia at 10 p.m. this evening. So very good on that one, and already we've had Ireland beat South Korea 31-0 in their in sort of, I guess, the bowl or the plate semi-final. So they will either face Kenya or Japan in that 9th, 10th playoff in that one. So yes, Aaron just confirming the timing of that one. So yes, so that's how the Olympics are going. Obviously, New Zealand came through undefeated from their games, even if it was close. With Australia, only 12-14 was the margin in that one in the end, after Australia lost to Argentina earlier in the tournament. Argentina going through obviously against as well. So 3 teams from that group through. Team GB, which obviously me with my England jersey up there, I'm interested in, if I can get my finger right, won their first 2 games without conceding any points at all, but then lost to Fiji in their final group stage game, and hence now up against the USA. So that all takes place today. Tomorrow we'll have the quarterfinals and also the semi-finals and the final for that. And then the women's competition kicks off on a Wednesday. Aaron's got gold, Fiji down as favourites for gold and I think that will be a lot of people's decision. But looking online at the, I've gone blank as to the algorithm's name now, but one of the algorithmic prediction engines has got New Zealand down as favourites to win the Olympic gold. So, let's say I do think it is really between New Zealand and also the other one. So I've gone blank with now. But yes. Oh wow! Look at this thing, Stephen. You've got some fans in the live chat there. Craig says you're a good radio commentator. Remember him from years back. 99% sure it's not mistaken identity. Correct. Stephen used to do the radio sport commentary for Northland in the NPC, and also as a regular dial-in to various shows on that station.
Yeah, maybe guilty as charged.
So, yep, Craig, you've got the right guy. But now I'm coming up in his footsteps as a commentator, as I did the Northern Club finals with him the other weekend. So there we go. I'll usurp him. If as long as there aren't too many island names, because then
he's just jumping on my shoot tails, Craig. That's all.
It's not what you know; it's who you know. And Simon, good to see you in the live chat as well there. And yeah, congratulations to Uruguay and Chile, who are into the next round of the Rugby World Cup qualifiers. Uruguay will play the winners of Canada versus the USA, apparently. So all fun and games over there. Looks like the USA, by the way, looking at November internationals, is they will not be touring this November. They'll be playing their World Cup qualifiers. And then they'll also be hosting the All Blacks in Chicago before playing Ireland in Las Vegas. Viva Las Vegas. There we go. So, Stephen, what do you think of the All Blacks heading over to Chicago to play the USA in that time?
Oh, definitely all about the cash, I suppose. But Paul, yeah, I mean to say I'm not overly excited about it, to be brutally honest, because as probably in terms of a competitive game of rugby, that it probably won't be. Yeah, primarily about money in that particular market.
No, absolutely. What side do you think will send that will be sending, or Steve Hansen will be sending? Do you think he'll do a 52-man squad like he did when they went up to play Japan and send a totally different squad, or do you think it will be a semi-first choice squad?
Well, for one, I don't think Steve Hansen's involved anymore.
Oh, sorry.
But yeah, Ian Fozzie. Yeah,
Ian Foster.
Yeah, Fozzie Bear. Yeah, I mean to say he's already stated that he's trying to create some depth. I would be very, very surprised if he sends his strongest combination up there. I mean to say his leading players, well, depending on where COVID takes us, should have played a lot of rugby by then. If they haven't been, if there is no sort of a lot of test rugby on the schedule, they'll probably be playing a bit of NPC, I would imagine. So for me, I'll be a little bit surprised if he sends a full strength team up there. I think he'll probably send maybe something similar to a probably players, probably 20 to 40 up there. I'm picking.
Yeah, it's interesting. Well, yeah, it's interesting. We'll see if some players do fly straight to Europe like they did, and not be there at all, or whether they'll all go en masse to the USA. I would think that you'd send some straight to Europe, even if it's purely for a COVID mitigation reason, to avoid to just reduce the chances of sort of not being allowed in as a squad into the country and actually having a full team available. So, it'll be interesting to see how Foster uses that game. I wouldn't be surprised to see an entire shadow squad of players going, or maybe something like 5 or 6 players that would fly on to Europe if as squad members and not available and not playing that first game, would be my kind of gut feel as to how he'll do it. But we'll have to wait and see how that all pans out on that one, especially after the way the USA lost to both England and Ireland in this recent window as well over in Europe. Just a quick update at half time between Kenya and Japan. It's 14-7, folks. Those watching live, obviously, if you're on the podcast, you'll know the result already. But there we go. Or watching back to the video. Simon knows Stephen hasn't got a job with the Sports Entertainment Network yet, unfortunately, or actually fortunately for me, because he wouldn't be able to be on here. Then he'd be kind of barred from doing other work at a guest. But there we go. Let's have a quick chat about the NPC squads then, because Nocturnal Rights has brought it up in the chat. He says, "Look, I walked past the Otago squad down at Logan Park today. Interesting at the level, the players don't seem to have the same. Interesting at this level, I think it means the players don't have the same muscle mass as Super Rugby level. They still look like big men to me." Well, let's be honest. The NPC teams are made up of the Super Rugby players who are not playing internationals. So, I mean, players like Ethan de Groot, for example, will be turning out for Southland, and he was playing for the All Blacks not that long ago. Then there'll be players, and the rest of the players are made up of club players who are not full-time rugby players. Essentially, they'll have other jobs as well, and so unsurprisingly, that people will have that they won't be the same. They won't have the same amount of time to condition, do they, Stephen?
Oh, very much so. I'm saying that just for the sake of Nocturnal Rights. If you look at the Highlander squad, and I won't go through all of the squad, but they pretty much, if they wanted to, they could pretty much pick a super rugby backline. Just to give you an example, Kane Hamilton, Josh Ioane, Thomas Umanga Jensen, Seal Tompkinson, Jonah Nareki, Freedom Vahakaloa, and Sam Gilbert. Just to give you a few ideas of who they can pick, and just in terms of depth, of course, they've brought back the likes of Matt Faddis, who's come back from playing overseas, and also picked up the very promising, exciting Ray New from Southland. Of course, in the case of Southland, the Southland team still hasn't been named at the stage. Obviously, Dale McLeod's still trying to fill some gaps at this very late stage, and that's after a few guys have obviously defected to other unions, the likes of Selby Rickett earlier in the year. But of course, he's had a lot of bad luck in and around his props. Pays not to be a prop in Southland rugby at the moment, Paul, because you tend to get injured.
Yeah, look, we were Nocturnal, I guess my point is that over the years, bulk has been increasing with diets, etc. Absolutely, it has. And there isn't the same variation in body size as there used to be, and as you do see in the Farah Palmer Cup. But looking at that Otago squad, as you say, as a front row, you've got Ainsley and Bauer there, Liam Coltman. Then in the locks, you could have Josh Dixon with probably Will Tucker. Then Lenchies, Dylan Nell, and Slade McNabb. So perhaps two players in that starting pack wouldn't be Super Rugby. And then in the back line, as you say, you can have an entire back line of Super Rugby players or full-time professional players, with Faddis being not really. He is a Super Rugby player, but let's be honest, not this year. And you've got to think that Otago side is in the Championship as well. It's not even in the Premiership. It's still. Some of the squads are really stacked this season, aren't they?
Oh, very, very much so. It's interesting that we started sort of in the South Island. The likes of. I look at those loose forwards as well. Guys like Slade McDowell, Lynchies, they've been around for a while. There's a few new names there, but Dylan Nell, very experienced player. But one player I'm very keen to see is Sean Withy, who was one of the standout players at the 2021 under-20s tournament this year for the Highlanders. He's a young player with a really, really big future. So I'd like to think with their squad, they can sort of implement some of these young guys into the team during the season. But man, in terms of Championship, they got a squad there that could challenge a few Premiership teams, Paul. But I'd probably almost have them on paper as maybe the favourites for the championship?
I'm just looking through the teams and the championships. Let's run through those. I mean, Counties Manukau, Manawatu, North Harbour, Northland, Otago, Southland, and Taranaki. And yeah, you got to say Otago will be up there. Manawatu have gone shopping to a certain degree. It's going to be interesting to see how they go. They've not named their side yet, but I think the big loss. I think Jamie Booth is out for the season for Manawatu, which will be a massive loss for them in there. So North Harbour would be a team that that again. I don't know they have named theirs, but I mean with players like Hall and Gatlin, they've got a good halfbacks, but then you've got problems in like the midfield, in the fact that they've got only got 3 midfielders named, and their outside backs again. 5 of those are in red on the old wiki, which means that they've not got their own wiki page, which gives you an idea that those are all basically rookies. So it looks like pretty much a rookie back line for North Harbour this year.
Oh, yeah, it is. Actually, it's probably good that we actually stay with the likes of North Harbour, maybe because the team, I don't know whether it's happened by hook or by crook, but all the teams we've mentioned so far are all the championship teams. So we may as well stay in the championship pool. So good thinking. Just in terms of North Harbour, they had a run against Northland up in Kaitaia on the weekend, and had a very convincing win by 43 points to 17. Although you can't probably take too much out of pre-season games. Northland weren't exactly fielding a full-strength side up in the far north. I think they're probably looking more to this weekend. But just looking at their squad, yeah, that midfield, a lot of new guys in the midfield. I mean to say the likes of James Little, he's been with Harbour for the last couple of seasons, but new names Henry Taifu and Finney Anisi are certainly new names to me. Although they've got a lot of excitement on the outside backs, and any back line that's got Sean Stevenson at the back, but a lot of quick stepping guys like Thomas Aoki, and also Cade Banks is a newcomer who's come down from Mahurangi to Takapuna this year and looks an exciting player, quite a small player, but he can play wing and fullback. And of course, Moses Leo, who played for who was part of the New Zealand 7 system earlier in the year, I'm picking he's going to be one player to watch in the NPC. He marked up on Ready Ranger on the weekend, and he gave Ranger plenty of problems with his outside pace. And first 5 were Bryn Gatlin, as long as I think if they can keep Bryn fit. But they've also got a good deputy in Jack Hyton. Jack Hyton was in the Blues unbelievably back in, when was it? I think it was 2019. So he hasn't been spotted since then. He was one of these young players that was pretty much picked up by the Blues, and I thought they were, but really nothing eventuated. And of course at halfback, not too sure about the other 2 halfbacks they have there. Asia Halo from the looks like the Takapuna club, and Sayosi Ningi, who plays for Western United. Pretty much new to this level of rugby, so I can probably see somebody like Bryn Hall spending a lot of time, a lot of game time during most of Harbour's games, especially against championship sides, I reckon, Paul.
Yeah, but I think also that pack as well. Okay, Carl Twelve Cafe is going to be away, so they got Mafileo, but then again it starts getting a bit thin at prop. Again in the locks, Jacob Pearce, Sione Teleafeo, again starting to get a bit thin there. They only got 3 locks listed. Amongst those loose forwards, Dylan Hunt's injured. That's massive for them. Murphy Taramai's there, but again, you look after that. You look after him. You're looking around going, there's not much. It's a pretty. That platform isn't going to be so great. So yeah, you got to say Otago looking. So the strongest out of those teams. Nocturnal Rights says the gap in the NPC is really between the Premiership top 4 and the rest. Well, that's interesting because I'm not really sure who you think the top 4 are, Nocturnal, in this one, because obviously Canterbury's in there with an absolutely stacked team. in this one. Obviously they've signed Naholo, even though Naholo was playing in the Otago club competition. He came out and said that he talked around to a few teams, but no one wanted him, or perhaps had space in their sides for him at the time. So you add him into there, you then add Jack Debrasini in there as well, and you're like, whoa! Not only do these guys have already players like Oliver Jaeger, Daniel Leonard-Brown, Conan O'Donnell, Timothy Williams, so they're going to bring off Super Rugby players off the bench there in the props. You've got players like Luke Romano, Mitchell Dunshay. Again, then you've got Cullen Grace. Tom Christie, unfortunately, is injured. But again, look, they are going to be there or thereabouts. I think they are looking like the team to beat straight away on this one. Clearly, Tasman, the champions from the last 2 years, will be again a very good squad. Players like Blackadder's in there, Finley Christie. Actually, Finley Christie's missing because he'll obviously be with the All Blacks as injury cover initially. But Lester Faranuku's still with them. Mark Talea, we know he scores a whole bunch of tries. Nankiville, Mitchell Hunt, Parry Parkinson, Quinton Strange. They've got quality throughout, so they're going to be there. Auckland is an interesting one. They've not named their squad as yet, I don't believe. But we've definitely seen a number of defections already. We've also a changing in coaching staff. So there's definitely some unrest in there, and it'll be a bit of change. Sure, Auckland have been in the final the last 3 years, I think it is. So winning it as well once. So those are three teams you'd expect to be powerhouses. But then you've got, when you think about sort of Wellington, also a traditional powerhouse at this level. Again, they've not named their side yet, but they'll have players like Wes Houston, Julian Surveyor, Jackson Garden Bashop. You'd expect still to be there. I'm not sure if Vince Arso will still be there, whether he's gone overseas already. But via Fafito, again, another player that may be there or will go overseas. But again, they'll again be asking questions, and that's what you consider to be your top four teams. But then you got teams like Bay of Plenty, who are recent challengers at this level, and having made the playoffs last year, what have they gone and done? Well, they've gone and added players like Sean Wainui from Taranaki in there. Malachi Selby Ricketts been added to the squad as well. So I'm not sure where this top four is, because I think Bay of Plenty you'd have to put in that top four as being a strong side.
I think so, Paul. I know the TAB's got them at $8, I think it is, which I find, in Auckland are at $4.50, which I find really, really strange. No offence, but we haven't seen an Auckland team named. Some of their better players have left Auckland. They probably won't have their All Blacks available a lot of the time. If you look through that Bay of Plenty Steamers squad, jeepers, they've not just the players that they've picked up, but also some of the really, really promising players that they've actually got running around. Like for example, Cohen Herbert is a New Zealand under 20s New Zealand secondary schools open side flanker with a really, really big reputation. So, man, I tell you what.
Fetu Douglas as well. He wasn't there last season, so Fetu Douglas is now a steamer.
Exactly, Fetu Maramara Douglas. Also, Tavita Mafilio. I can't recall him being with the Bay of Plenty Steamers this year. Obviously, the man from the Hurricanes. So I looked through their squad, and a lot of depth, a lot of names that we know. Obviously, probably the only All Black I'm really looking at is probably Sam Cane, but he probably won't be running around. It's debatable whether he'll be running around for the All Blacks this year. Maybe not. I say at this stage, but and of course, a lot of good Super Rugby experience, Paul.
Yeah, I can't. Yeah, I mean, Sam Cane won't be available because he's injured. So I can't see him being there. But you look through the rest of that list and you go, that's pretty much all they'll all be there. I mean, Kurt Eklund's had a good season, but he's clearly fifth or sixth choice by the All Blacks at hooker now at the moment. I guess their only problem is potentially in midfield. There are some question marks there as to what, but they played Chase Tiatia in there quite happily. Sean Wainui is quite happy to play at 13, at this level as well. So no problems for the base. That's 5 teams that are competitive.
Paul, I was going to say there's a real interesting selection in that Bay of Plenty Steamers to me, and it's the Queensland Reds loose forward. He normally plays either 6 or 8, probably mostly 6. Angus Scott Young is in Bay of Plenty Steamers squad. So that's a real interesting selection to me, but it also says to me how Bay of Plenty are they were semi-finalists last year. They will probably want to go one step better.
Yep, I mean, Waikato haven't announced their squad, but they have announced tonight that Liam Messam has re-signed, so he's available again. And then finally, the other team that's in there is Hawke's Bay, who haven't announced their squad yet, but sure they'll be missing Brad Weber. Fakatava's injured, so they'll have a bit of an issue potentially around scrum half. But this is a team that again has been together for a long time. A lot of these players come through school together, so there's a lot of good players here. Again, they're Ranfurly Shield holders, so I don't see a top 4 within that Premiership. I think the Premiership is going to be competitive from top to bottom this year. I don't see one of those teams going winless in the same way that we've seen teams go in the last couple of seasons and get dropped out. So that whoever gets relegated Hawke's Bay will go in as favourites to be relegated because they got promoted last year, I think. But it's going to be a real tough Premiership this year as well.
Yeah, I go along with that. And I think the other thing with Hawke's Bay, I'm not 100% sure whether they've named their squad, but they haven't brought too many players in. From what I've seen, from what I can see, I think they've gone local. They've got they've brought in the odd player from the outside, but I think a real big loss for them is going to be Folau Fakatava, who was outstanding for them in 2020, Paul.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Apparently, Sam Cane is hoping to come back for Bay of Plenty and then the All Blacks. Well, yes. I'd expect Sam Cane, perhaps also Jack Goodhue as well, if they get back, to play a couple of NPC games to get themselves up to speed before going straight back into the All Blacks. But Angus Scott Young, as you say, one of the things Nocturnal Right says is a player who wants to make the Wallabies. So a good idea to come over here because look, with the NRC now not existing in Australia, there's no rugby in Australia for them to play and to develop their game. And they're not the only ones, are they? Because I think you were talking about someone over from the Waratahs has come over as well to play some NPC. It helps if you're not muted, Stephen.
That actually helps as well, yeah. Well, hopefully the player that's come over is not muted, but Sam Caird, who turned out for the Waratahs in Super Rugby this year, has signed with Northland for the 2021 season. So just currently in MIQ, from what I believe at the minute, but might be available for Northland's first up game, or will probably be joining the squad. So once again, I can probably tell you a little bit about Northland this year. Probably much of the same team that they had in 2020. They have brought in the very promising Rivers Reihana, who was with Waikato last year, and they've certainly bolstered their pack in terms of size, especially in the front row. Kaliopasi Uri Lapeka from Wellington, the New Zealand under 20s tight head prop has gone north, so they're lucky that they've picked up Kaliopasi from Wellington. Also, the number 8 who went to Northland last year, that's Isalili Manu, who's the younger brother of Paulie Asimanu. Went up to North, probably not in the best condition in 2020, but is in much better condition this year. And just looking through the rest of their pack, also the one player that they actually have picked from outside the union, and really that was it was probably more of a precaution at the time, just in terms of they want to keep their locking stocks high. And of course, Josh Goodhue's taken a few knocks this year, and they have signed Liam Hamims from Auckland, who was part of their Mitre 10 Cup squad. But pretty much going through the rest of the backline, pretty much the same backline that they had in 2021, with a couple of sort of younger additions into the side. Probably for the Northern Taniwha, their strength is definitely going to be in their forwards. And of course, I shouldn't forget Kara Pryor, returning from playing MRL rugby for New York.
Yeah, interesting one there for New York, because they're still in the. Actually, no, they've just been knocked out because they made it to the semi-finals from memory. But Ruz Rehana, that's a really interesting one. I guess that's why Sky Fayani is no longer getting a look in, and is probably a replacement for him. But Ruz Rehana, that's going to be a really good one. He can play 15 as well as 10, so it'll be interesting to see how they do. As you say, someone that I know because he's a Waikato boy, and someone I've seen play for them quite a bit. Simon Hughes makes a good point here that how about the Cook Islands joining the NPC after their game against Tonga? And that would be a good idea. I guess the problem here is going to be that team is very much amateur players. And with that note in mind, let's have a quick listen or hear from their fly half, Reece Joyce, who I had a chat with straight after the game. And I've not tested this, so hopefully this works, folks. But this was my chat with Reece Joyce.
We are after the Rugby World Cup qualifier between Tonga and the Cook Islands with Reece Joyce. So, how have you? Obviously, a good start to the game. You guys really came out firing from the sheds and got yourselves 3-0 up.
Yeah, we had a process that to try to kick the ball and keep it behind them and just play in their half. We did come away with points nice and early, which got the tails up. But as Tonga is, they're a dominant team, and they proceeded to get through.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The scrum time really was very powerful from them, and I feel sorry for your front five. I think they're going to be sore tomorrow morning. But how has the sort of last 3 weeks been? Sort of having that time together as a squad, to obviously and to have a number of games as a team.
Yeah, well, first of all, like you said, the scrums were very dominant from the Tongan team. That's what we're expecting. I'm not too sure how sore the bodies will be, as I'm not in the scrums, but I'm definitely sure there will be some bumps and bruises. In terms of being in camp with the boys, yes, we did have a few runs and whatnot, but well, what can I say? For a small nation that just got thrown together, I'm very proud of all the boys and the efforts that they put through. I'm sure everyone else around is very proud of us as well. So yeah.
No, absolutely. Look, you've got family written on your arm. It is about family, isn't it? As I say, it is a small nation. 53rd in the world. It would have been a massive upset for you guys to go through. Let's be honest. But to do it for your family and to have someone like Lima, I guess, to help coach you guys as well, and seeing him come back with family, it does show this has been a real big family thing for the Cook Islands.
Yeah, well, like you said, family is one of the things that we base this camp on, just trying to stay tight and whatnot. Lima bringing the experience that he did, and he's brought 3 of his brothers with him. That just goes to show that there's a lot of heart, talent, and family is something that wins the crowd. So yeah.
No, and it's been great to see family in the crowd, all the babies, and it has been a great family atmosphere for this game. So sorry that you came up short, but well done for showing the heart and spirit out there. And thank you so much for putting on a great show for us.
Nah, no worries. Like I said, thanks to all the support and all the families. Hope we've done them proud, and cheers, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, you've done them well proud.
Cheers.
And so look, as he said in that, I guess one of the comments in there is that he said this team has been thrown together, which gives you an idea as to how often these guys get to play together, which is pretty much next to never. Lima Sopoaga he's turned up and brought his 3 brothers. Now that's like 10% of the team that has suddenly turned up from nowhere and been added to the squad. So look, this is to expect for the Cook Islands to put together a team for the NPC would be a massive stretch. Putting a team together for 3 weeks once a year is very different to put and maybe once or twice for other games is one thing. Putting together a team for 12 weeks, which is what you have to do for it's 10 weeks of regular season, 2 weeks of finals. You need 3 or 4 weeks at least of pre-season. So you're looking at a 14 to 16 week campaign, and I think that kind of that would be a massive ask for the Cook Islands without some serious investment from World Rugby, etc. Stephen.
Oh, I totally agree, Paul. And if you think about the attrition rate that even your Mitre 10 Cup teams have during the season, when they have to basically call on resources from either their development squads or wider training squads that they have within their group. Boy, to ask a team like the Cook Islands, who have got absolutely nowhere near the depth as some of these Mitre 10 Cup sides. I mean, to say, give you an example, there were a couple of players from there were a couple of players who were from Northern, O'Neill Raw, who was locked from Kerikeri. I mean, to say, he's probably, to be brutally honest, he would probably make the Northland development side, wider training squad. But Trevor Rudolph, who was playing, the boy Rudolph, who was playing fullback, he probably wouldn't get anywhere near the development squad. And I mean that very respectfully, Paul, but it's just the level of rugby that they play.
You're quite right. The Cook Islands do play in a Pacifica tournament, but I say that's probably the only time they get to play each year. So in that Pacifica tournament, they'll probably play 5 or 6 games, or maybe if not, if that, a year. So look, this is to get 3 weeks together like they've had here, playing Tasman, the New Zealand under-20s, and then Tonga. Is a level of play that they just never see. So look, it's fantastic. As I said on the interview, they gave a good account of themselves. They showed lots of spirit. It was great. They definitely did not let their families down at all, and it was wonderful. But they were up against it. But you're quite right. The NPC would be a fantastic way of growing the sport of them. As someone has said here, I'm sure the other NPC sides would love a boys' trip away to Rarotonga during the season as well.
And Paul, maybe even trying to integrate some of these guys into heartland rugby.
Yep.
Just to give them a reasonable level of experience or an opportunity to get better, to be in a squad situation. Because I mean to say, some of these heartland teams aren't too bad. They aren't total easy beats, as far as I'm concerned.
True, but I think having a Cook Islands team in the NPC as a team would be really useful for them playing together, etc. And that's and if 1 or 2 of the players could be in other teams, that'd be fine. But I think it would be a fantastic move for them. I just can't see it actually happening, to be honest with you. Then also, it was very interesting. It was interesting to have a chat with the Tonga national coach after the game, because to us, is Stephen watching air raid bombers? No, I think he's probably watching the Sevens game, I guess, on his TV.
Yes, he is. And I can update you. New Zealand have just scored before halftime, and they're leading by 19 points to 0 with a conversion to come, which is out in front of the stick, so it should be converted. So it should be 21 points to 0. Because the tone of his interview after this game was very different to when I talked to him after the first Samoa Tonga game, and very different to what was being reported in the news as well in the week prior about player availability and all that kind of stuff. So let's have a listen to the Tonga national coach after this game.
Yeah, relieved. You just don't know about those games, and first 10 minutes they put up a really, really good fight. We knew if we kept the pressure on, we could finally break them, and we thought probably just after half time, we'd probably start to feel a little bit comfortable, but to all their credit, we understand the challenges they go through, so we've been there. We're very happy to relieve.
And I get early on, perhaps showed the fact that you could only play. You had sort of 9 players from last week, a lot of changes, a bit disjointed, taking a bit of a while to settle in. Yeah,
I didn't realise it was that many. We were in a bit of a panic in the middle of the week. We were looking for players, but we had the core group there. I mean, we had 4 injuries, 5 injuries, and for whatever other reasons in the one kind of position in the back row. So that's probably why there's 2 new caps in the back row today, and then 2 came off the bench. So on the positive side, with building depth, and we had a chance to look at them at a test standard level.
And you got, as you say, building, but also that combination, particularly the front 5 at scrum time, were really powerful tonight.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about probably tight head. Ben Tamafuna is probably, was at the best of his, and the best at that position at one time.
Yep.
He's still pretty good, plying his trade over in France. So, and then you have Silla come on, who's been very good for us all year. Yeah, the front 3 is a bit of a positive for us.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I guess next step is going to be up against an Asian qualifier. Are you concerned yet about sort of getting players available for that, when that game might be?
I haven't thought about it. I've heard that it's Hong Kong. Don't know where that game will be, but it'll sink in over the next couple of weeks, I think.
Okay, so just working with World Rugby and with other people to try and just make sure it's all as many players as possible are available.
Yeah, I mean that helps us. We'll try and get our best squad. From now on in, I think without any of these COVID restrictions, we should be able to have access to our best team, best players.
This is awesome. What do you take away from an international window like this for yourself as a coach? Having all these rotating players, the new players coming through.
It's any time we spend together, it's fantastic. We only come together twice a year for around 4 weeks, whereas those Tier 1 nations, they're together months and months. So the more time we spend together, the better.
Great. Thank you very much for your time, and congratulations on the win.
Yeah, thank you. No, we're very, like I said, very relieved.
We're stoked.
So as you can hear the RNZ, the lady there say she's stoked about the win at the end there. But
yeah, I was going to say, you were owning that press conference, mate.
Oh, look, the other 2 clearly, yeah, we had an agreement that basically the Radio New Zealand they would open it up so I didn't have any issues embarrassing myself or embarrassing people about pronunciations of names, and then they basically, yes, it was Paul, yeah, off you go, and then we'll just we'll just chip in at the end. So I guess, look, I went there asking, I basically put it out there for him to say, yes, we need World Rugby's help to get players. And he didn't take that. He didn't take the opportunity, which I was a bit surprised at, and seemed to lay the ball more at the door of COVID than of access to players, which I thought was a bit of a surprise there with that one. But hey, maybe he feels comfortable. I don't
know. I had read somewhere that they had even before the tournament they had identified something along the lines of 25 props of Tongan descent, but none of them were interested. So it just shows you that, even basically getting access to not just players but quality players is difficult.
Yeah, no, exactly. And as I say, I went out there. I thought I'd given the opportunity to publicly say, yes, please, World Rugby, help us, and he didn't take it, which I was a bit surprised at. Interesting there, as you say, they went through 20 odd. They ended up calling up a 40-year-old prop in Sona Tuamalolo. Did I butcher that one, or did I do okay, Steve?
No, you did. No, you did. No, you did right. You did well.
And you can catch my interview with him. That's on Facebook. Sorry, he's 39. He's not 40 until November. geez, I'm
you're doing him an injustice.
dissing the fella. But yeah, he was great to have a chat with after the game, and yeah, he stepped up. I did point out to him that he ruined his record, because before this game, he was 20 games with 20 points, and that by playing this game and not scoring, he's now 21 games with 20 points. So he has got less. He's got more games than points. So yes, it'll be. But he was gracious with his time as well. Simon reckons that the game between Tonga and the Asian qualifier will be played in July next year. I'd heard it was going to be played in January, which is why I was really concerned about player release. So we'll see as to when that is actually played with that one. But look, that to me was one of the most enjoyable games I've watched in a long time between Tonga and the Cook Islands. I really enjoyed that one. I know we've been up in Northland in the radio box up there. I've been in FMG Stadium a couple of times with the Chiefs, but walking back into Navigation Home Stadium, into that press box, it did feel like, okay, yeah, you're kind of back home, Paul. You're back in the this is NPC time is back. Fun times. It's because it's not the best stadium in the world by a long way. As one of them said, yeah, it's kind of cute. Yeah, it's no.
No,
look,
what you're trying to say is it's a time warp. You're going.
Oh, absolutely! It's a massive time warp.
That's what you're saying.
But it's a comfy time warp. It's like that old jumper that fits nicely.
Navigation Home Stadium, old jumper. I'll remember that.
The old jumper, yeah. And as Stephen will know, in our internal chat, I've been talking about getting buying myself a portable second monitor, because Navigation Home Stadium they have a Cathay Ray tube TV as the second and there's no big screen at the stadium. So if you want to see a replay, that's your only way, and it is fuzzy to say the very least. So thank you to all my Patreons and supporters of New Zealand Sport Radio, because you're the only reason I can potentially afford to buy this second screen that will allow me to see replays at the game. Otherwise, you're trying to do it without replays, which is very difficult, as Stephen will know. And if you're going to become a supporter, I've put it on the ticker at the bottom of the screen there. Patreon.com/NZ Sport Radio for those who listen to the podcast. So congratulations to Tonga, and well done to Cook Islands. It was an enjoyable game, but they were always up against it. It was never going to happen. As Simon says, the Tongan coach is currently being paid by World Rugby. You're very hard to criticise the organisation who pays you. Well, there is that, true. We'll have to wait and see. But there's a difference in criticising and asking for help. And I wasn't asking him to criticise them. I was asking him to ask for help. I was trying to put it out there that he'd ask for help. I try and put my questions in a positive light. I don't try and do them at negative or go fishing generally. But this was one where I just thought I'd put that out there to see if he would ask for help, basically. But he didn't. What other things have we? Oh yes, Razzie. Deary me, what is he up to? If he did look, so right. So there's folks who aren't on Twitter. There's a Twitter account that's been up, and there's apparently been around. Squid Rugby has looked into this and said it's been around since Razzie, and I've gone blank. What's the name of the South African head coach?
At the moment,
we always say it's Razzie, but it's not.
I was going to say Razzie Erasmus, but no, you're right. He's the director of rugby now.
So Jacques Nabar. So Jacques Nabar is the head coach. Now, when they were at Munster, this new Twitter account opened up, which is basically a mixture of their two names. And this weekend or this week, it came up with a high definition video with circles around incidents where South African players were calls that went against South Africa, and you're looking at that and you're like, well, hang on, that's the kind of stuff that Razzie's done in the past for Farrell in his England jersey, shoulder tackles against South African players. Now, and to me, what he's doing here is he's just undermining referees by putting videos out there like that. Everyone knows that this is an account that that Razzie and Jacques run. This is not an account that this is not a separate person. The quality of video, the quality of editing, shows you that this is and the fact that it's done in the exact same way as two videos that that Razzie's put out before. It's a no-brainer that it's Razzie that's doing it, or he's got his video analyst to put it together for him and put it out there. To me, he's just undermining referees. Now, other social media pundits have said, "Hey, it's a bit of fun. He's having a laugh." Stephen, where do you sit on this one?
Oh, listen, I personally think he's just planting seeds at the minute, Paul, and basically hoping he can basically gain support with officials, and maybe just put those plants in the mind for the next official that goes out there for stuff to watch. I mean to say, as we all know, something happens in every game of rugby that happens. And speaking of every game that happens, there's about a minute to go, and Canada have just scored its 21 points to 10 to New Zealand. May not have enough time, the Canadians, but they've been all over New Zealand in the last 2 or 3 minutes. I find it a bit annoying, to be honest, Paul.
Yeah, look, I honestly look. We've had head coaches for years come out in the press and go, "Oh, their players always drilling in," and all this kind of stuff, and just saying things in the press to get in the mind or to raise awareness of issues that they want the referee to look at. Now, to me, as nocturnal rights, South Africa being trespassed against, of course they wouldn't do it themselves to others. Absolutely. If he'd pulled out and it was a balanced one, showing the stuff that had been missed, that were calls that went South Africa's way, then okay, cool. But just the fact that it's so one-sided, I think it's opening up the abuse for referees as well by saying, look, referees get it wrong, aren't they awful? I'd love to see him put together a video showing when all his players have made mistakes. That'd be fantastic, because let's be honest, players make a lot of them. But the other thing. Sorry?
I was going to say, Rassie must have spent some time with Graham Henry. If we can think back to 2007, after the All Blacks got knocked out of the Rugby World Cup, the former All Black coach put on an hour presentation with the New Zealand Rugby Union, outlining all the referees' misdemeanours during 80 minutes of rugby. So whatever he did, he obviously convinced that New Zealand Rugby Union board at the time that he was still the man to take the All Blacks forwards. But that's pretty much a sign. But
and there's a difference. There's a difference doing it to your boss and showing them why things went wrong, and doing it in public, right? And that's, to me, it's the in public bit that I don't like. By the way, New Zealand has beaten Canada 21-10 to progress to the semi-finals of the Olympics, and the next game up is Great Britain against the USA in about 5 minutes. Dr. Wright makes the point, maybe South Africa should play with ball in hand a little more instead. Yeah, I mean, look, the way that the back four, you normally say back three, but back four, if you add Am in there, just didn't see the ball, was horrible. So yeah, I think it's bringing the game to disrepute. I think it's a bad thing for him to do, and I think it's sad that he's doing it. I'm not sure there's much more to say about that. As far as the Test series go, fantastic. The Lions won. I think one of the things that's going to be interesting that unlike normal series, South Africa are going to improve during this series because they've had several rugby together. They've been disrupted by COVID. We're not just going to see one team improving, which is what the British and Irish Lions normally do. So it's going to be really interesting to see how the rest of this series goes. Obviously, for the series, a lot of people, the neutral wants the South Africa to win the second game So it goes into a decider. From a personal point of view, where's my Lions jersey? Oh, it's there, front and centre. I'm all for a sweep by the British Irish Lions. So hopefully they get the win. I don't expect to see many changes from either side, and it should hopefully be a cracking game. We'll be live straight after the game with post-match reaction this weekend at what will be 6 o'clock in the morning after a 4 a.m. kickoff. That'll be fun.
Here's a question for you, Paul. I know sometimes when you go to places like Europe and South Africa, the home ground advantage and especially the crowds that are there is a huge advantage. Is that an advantage that South Africa are missing out on?
Yes, but I think it's also something that players will be used to now because they've been living with it for 12 months or 18 months, whereas previously I think it would be a big difference on this one. I'm just going to take a quick break. I don't know if you want to continue chatting or whether we wrap things up here. Shall I hand over to you to actually do you want to have a quick chat about the Olympic Sevens and how it's been going?
Yes, no, I will. I'm just popping the battery on because I've noticed my battery's gone down. Yeah, good evening, everybody. While the show's been on, I've just been watching the sevens, or the first game of the quarterfinal sevens, and of course the New Zealand team, the New Zealand Sevens team, came through and beat Canada by 21 points to 10, I think it was, and that was after they led by 21 points to 0 at halftime. They found the Canadians a bit of a hard combination to break down during this particular game, and ended up doing quite a bit of defending in the second half, especially the fourth quarter of that sort of second half between minute 3 and minute 7, but obviously had just done enough to take out the victory in the sevens. So it'll be interesting to watch some of these games that is on this evening over in Tokyo. But it's something I want to also touch on, just with regards to that British Lions and South Africa series that we have, or the first test that we watched on the weekend. Listen, at the end of the day, I think rugby is a game of little moments. I kind of think back to the kick ahead where the TMO basically found that maybe Willie LaRue may or may not have been offside. So there were just sort of little moments in that game. But I think I've got to say, at the end of the day, I personally think the better side won. And that was just based on a really good second half performance. Paul, good game management, and of course, spot on goal kicking as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So it sounds like you've been talking about the British Irish Lions game. I thought you were going to talk about the sevens at the Olympics, but never mind. Yeah, no, absolutely. It's a good game, but I think we should probably finish off by talking about. Well, actually, one thing we didn't mention: RTS. Well, RTS first before Farah Palmer Cup. Leaving the Warriors early, travelling back to New Zealand this week. Now, the reason he's doing this is because the travel is being closed between Australia to New Zealand for the next 8 weeks, and that if you come back, you have to go through quarantine. But if you come back within the 7 days from certain areas, which I guess he's in one of those, then you can come back without having to go through quarantine. So he's come back early and has been released by the Warriors, been allowed to do that. Look, the Warriors season is over. They've really had they're on a 5 or 6 game losing streak. Don't forget to join the Standoff show tomorrow evening at 8 p.m, where I'll take you through all of that, and they'll obviously talk about RTS leaving. So he's come back to get to basically avoid, as he's got a 7 day window to get back before MIQ is enforced. Where do you see him playing for Auckland to start off with, and do you think he should go straight into the side?
I suppose it'll depend on a lot of things. We haven't even seen that Auckland squad named at this stage, so it's hard to know who they're going to have at second 5, because that's the position that I'm hearing that they're going to basically run it, and I'm sure they'll give them an opportunity at some stage to run in that midfield position. But I think initially, they'll actually push him out to the wing. I just got to quickly say, on social network, he copped a little bit about deserting a sinking ship But to be brutally honest, my comment to that, well, I think that ship's been taking in water for a very long time, Paul. And unfortunately, some of the players on deck quite haven't been exactly helping to bail that water out or patch the ship up, should I say, or ride the ship. So, and I think the writing's on the wall. I think the Warriors organisation realise that they're pretty much out of the running as well. So, listen, I give the Warriors organisation a lot of credit for actually letting him go, and to me, he's not deserting the ship at all. He doesn't, if anything, that club probably owes him more than he actually owes that particular club, and it just makes sense. Also, given our lockdown conditions at the moment, hey, let's the ship is right beside the Titanic.
The ship is right beside the Titanic. Off track, but there was a fantastic tweet that showed that apparently they're looking at building a replica of the Titanic and sailing it. And Leonardo DiCaprio replied, going, "I'm not getting on that ship," or something similar to those lines, which was fantastic.
Yeah, that's tempting fate.
Now, look, I think if the Warriors had been in contention for the playoffs, then him jumping out at this point would be abandoning ship. But they're not even, what's there left to play for? So, to me, from that point of view, as far as I'm concerned, yeah, there's nothing left to play for. No big deal. If they had been within finals contention, then he should have gone. As Aaron says, from one sinking ship to another with Auckland Rugby. Well, yes, maybe. It's you can see why he's come to Auckland Rugby and the Blues, right? It's again, they're one of the few franchises that can afford him. It's been made clear that there is outside investment paying for him to do this. This is not all the money for this is coming from New Zealand Rugby. Some individual investors have gone, we would like to see him play rugby union. We're going to foot up some money for this. So there's some rich individuals who want to do this. Dr. Turner Wright says, he will be great, but do we really need him playing rugby rather than league? It's not about whether we need him to or not. It's about what does he want to try and do, right? If he wants to give it a go, then let him give it a go. Absolutely. So it'll be interesting. Yeah, I don't see him as a winger or a fullback. I do think he is, in the centres somewhere, whether it's 12 or 13. At the moment, New Zealand Rugby is stacked at 13 for the All Blacks. So 12 seems like a really sensible jersey to go for. At the moment, I think it's probably one of the jerseys, one of the few jerseys in the back line that, or probably the jersey in the back line has got the least or the shallowest depth in it. From my point of view, you think Anton Leonard-Brown, Goodhue, Rico Ioane are all 13s, not 12s. And you're looking, okay, David Avili is a 15, he's not a 12. I'm not sure there's one natural 12 at the moment who has played rugby for the All Blacks. So from that point of view...
Probably not since Ryan Crotty.
Yeah. Well, Ryan Crotty, Sonny Williams, those two have been the last 12s that have been available for the All Blacks. Now, sure, Ryan Crotty played 13 sometimes as well as 12, but I'm saying he's probably the last one. So, so there really is an opportunity there for somebody to be a 12. So it'll be interesting to see if he does it or not. So good luck to him. But we've seen with Benji Marshall, we've seen with the Auckland Rugby has got issues, as you said, with the number of players who are leaving. There's something wrong in the back going on in the back office, off the pitch. The Blues are not great at developing players historically. Let's be blunt. So if you wanted to be successful, I'm not sure it's the best place to go, but it's where the money is, and that's where he'll be paid to go. So, yep. So the Farah Palmer Cup has started. Last weekend, I was at one of those games to watch Counties Manukau versus Bay of Plenty, and you can see the post-match interviews with players on the New Zealand Sport Radio Facebook page. But just quickly, so in that game, Bay of Plenty came back to Counties Manukau came back to win the game 21-13 against Bay of Plenty. So far, your early pace setters are Auckland with 2 wins from their 2 games, as well as Canterbury, unsurprisingly. But Waikato did push Canterbury close last weekend. Those 2 are going to be there or thereabouts at the top of the table.
Paul, I was going to say the pleasing thing for me looking through the scorelines, I know last year we saw a lot of one-sided scorelines, but gee, we had 3 games on the weekend that could have gone relatively either way. Tasman North Harbour, of course, that was the first game taken out by North Harbour. Listen, I watched a bit of the Canterbury Waikato game. 24-17 was the final score, but you know what? Waikato had their chances. Listen, great game through the middle from Chelsea Alley. Boy, she's a class footballer, very class midfielder, and a lot of her attacks were sort of spiked around her. But they had their opportunities against Canterbury, and it was kind of a repeat of that final last year. I watched the Northland Kauri Hawke's Bay Tui game, and of course the Kauri came back from 15-26 down at halftime, and once they got their offloading game going, and a lot of their attacks once again centering around Crystal Murray, who was like a runaway train in the middle of the paddock, getting offloads away. And once they got their game together, they probably ran over a tiring Hawke's Bay Tui team. Saw a little bit of the Manawatu Cycles game over Taranaki Fior, 48-5. Two far too good in that game. And might be a bit early to call it, but probably in that championship division, maybe Northland Kauri and Manawatu Cycles, who meet this Saturday. And I'm going to be up in Whangarei and hopefully get some after-match interviews for next Tuesday's show. That'll give us a bit of an idea who's the favourite to take out the championship division, Paul.
Yeah, I think, look, now we're back to championship rather than north-south. We shouldn't get the same big blowouts that we got in some of those games last year. But you look at the Premiership already. Auckland and Canterbury are setting the early pace, and they'll be there or thereabouts. Already, Otago and Bay of Plenty both look like they're going to be in trouble down fighting it out for relegation, if there is relegation. Similarly, in the Championship, you say Manawatu and Northland, the two sides to beat, and you say facing each other this weekend is going to be a big guide as to who's going to be top there. But I expect those 2 to both be in the final at the end of it, to be honest with you. Harbour got the win at the weekend over Tasman, but only by 3 points. And Tasman know they lose all their players. They're a very young side because they don't have a university, and so they all go down to Canterbury. So it's a very young side that they have there. I'd expect. I think we're seeing some early form already that, the Storm, Auckland and Canterbury will be Premiership favourites. Otago and Bay of Plenty are going to struggle in that top division, especially with Otago. With Bay of Plenty. Remember last year, all the Sevens players were available, and obviously, I was going to say Tyra, but no, wrong place. What do I mean? Where do Bay of Plenty play? They play in Rotorua and they play in Tauranga. Tauranga is the home of Sevens, and hence obviously they had a number of Sevens players available to them. And then in the Championship, we say Manawatu and Northland top there. I hope to. Well, I'll see if I can make the Bay of Plenty versus Waikato game this weekend. But I do have my daughters with me, and I'm not sure they're going to enjoy getting dragged out to rugby ground for the afternoon. But let's see how that one goes. I think that wraps things up for Stephen.
Yep, it certainly does. I'll be up in Whangarei this Saturday. I'll be up. Not too sure if we're live streaming the preseason game between Northland and Auckland, but I will basically see if I can get some interviews for that particular game. Also, East Coast Ngāti Porou.
When he says we, he means Northern Rugby Union. You look Northern Rugby Facebook page, not New Zealand Sport Radio Facebook page.
Yes, and of course the Northland development squad are playing Ngāti Porou East Coast, and that's basically a return game from last year when the Northland development squad went down to Ruatokia. Had a great time down there. I'm pretty sure they'll find the hospitality up at Seminole Stadium just as good as it was last year. And of course, the last of that triple header is the game between the Coyote and the Cyclones, not the Cycles, but the Cyclones. God.
Fabulous. Thank you, everybody, for joining us in the live chat. Just one thing here. So there's just one criticism about the TV coverage of the women's competition, and they need to stagger the time for the games. It doesn't help splitting the audience up. Well, yes, but I think the reality is that this is still a participation and attending tournament rather than a TV audience tournament at the moment, and they just need to grow it. And by putting all the games on TV, at least it's a step in the right direction for that. Don't forget the NPC will be having games on at the same time this year, 2 games at the same time, which makes things a little bit harder for some of us. So yes, GB currently in trouble against the USA in the Olympic Sevens, trailing 21-7 in that one. USA, serious side with players like Carlin Isles and Perry Baker, obviously. Stephen, thank you very much. Don't forget, tomorrow evening, it's the Standoff Show at 8 p.m. to talk all your rugby league action and RTS leaving. And we'll be back for post-match reaction to the Lions game on Sunday morning.